Hey guys, today we're going to talk about factoring our trinomials in the form x squared plus bx plus c, but now we're going to focus on what happens if that b and c are not necessarily a positive number. So we're going to run through a few examples of these and I'll just explain to you what to look for with them. So your first example we have is x squared minus 16x plus 15. And last week we kind of talked about making this little table. What is b equal to? What is c equal to? Well, c is a positive 15 here, and b is negative 16. So one thing we want to look for here, notice we have the negative instead of the positive, but I'm going to focus on this right now. If you have a positive c, like plus your c value, when you get to factoring, that means what you multiplied together, your last terms, were either both positive, like let's just choose one example that would work. It would either be like plus 3 and plus 5, because positive 3 times positive 5 is positive 15, or it could be a minus and a minus, because a minus 3 times or negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15. Your middle sign is going to have to be the same because that c is positive, because a negative times a negative is a positive, and a positive times a positive. If it was like a plus here and a minus there, that's where a negative sign would pop up here. So it has to be either be both plus or both minus. Now what's going to tell you if they're both plus or plus minus is that b term. Since the b is a negative, so we're going to have to add up to be a negative, so we're going to have to be subtracting those terms at the end. So it's going to be x minus something here and x minus something there. We know these are both x because x times x will give you the x squared. We talked about that last week. We just need to figure out what our two terms are here, our two constants in these binomials. So we know they're both going to have to be negative. So the versions of like factors that multiply to be 15, like 15 times 1 is 16, which is close, but we need a negative 16. That means we should have had negative 15 times negative 1, because those multiply to be a positive 15, but they add up to be a negative 16, which is what we need. So it's x minus 15 and x minus 1. We should be expecting those two minus signs because we see that b is negative and a positive c. And this would be the factored form. You can go ahead and FOIL it out if you want, but this will multiply out to be what we have up here. Our second example here, we'll move on to this guy. We have x squared plus 2x minus 8. So now notice the negative sign is with the c value here. So when you have a negative with the c, b equals positive 2, c equals negative 8. That means when you factor, in order to get a negative, one of these is going to be a plus, one of them is going to be a minus. So you'll have x and x times x is x squared. Now we need a plus and a minus, because a negative times a positive will give you that negative. So think of some factors of 8. So let's say you do 8 and 1. One of them has to be negative. So if you do negative 8 times 1, that would give you negative 8. You add them together, you would get negative 7, that's not 2. If you did, well, since this didn't work, we should be able to tell that this one's not going to work. I'm going to write it down anyway. 8 times negative 1 multiplies to be negative 8, and it'll just be a positive 7. Still not 2. So let's say we take 4 and 2. Now let's say we do negative 4 times 2. Negative 4 times 2 will give you the negative 8. Add them together, you get negative 2. Close. We need a positive 2 though. That means our signs were off. So 4 times negative 2 will get you the negative 8. When you add them together, you'll get the positive 2. So you're going to be adding 4, subtracting 2 here. If you were to FOIL this out, you're going to end up here. So if you see that negative in the c, that means these are going to be two different signs, and you just have to figure out the right constants to go in those binomials that are going to get you the desired b value. In this case, the desired b was a positive 2. In our next example, the desired b value is not positive 2. We have x squared minus x minus 6. So again, we have b and c. c is a negative 6. b is a negative 1. So, since that c is negative, you know it's going to have to be x plus something and x minus something here. Again, our leading coefficient is 1, so x times x is x squared. But since we have a negative c, it's going to have to be plus and a minus. So think of things that multiply to be negative 6. Well, negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. Add together, negative 5, that doesn't work. From that, we should know that this one's not going to work. 6 times negative 1, when you add together, will be positive 5. The only thing changing is the sign there. So let's go to some other examples. 3 times negative 2, that equals negative 6. Add them together, you get 1. You're close, but we need negative 1. So negative 3 times 2 would get you negative 6. Add them together, you get negative 1. Here's our winner. So you're subtracting 3, adding 2. This is the factored form of this. We are completely factored here, and we're all done. So these again are in the same form, but now you might have a minus b, a minus c, and those are the things you're looking for with that minus c or that minus b here. So go ahead and try a few on your own, and have a nice day.